Welcome to Their Story podcast. My name is Janelle Abarca, and I'm so excited to introduce my very first guest. She was born and raised in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. She attended Southern Illinois University in Carbondale and graduated with a degree in exercise science. She then went on to Franklin College and graduated with her master's in athletic training. She currently is a certified athletic trainer and covers women's tennis, women's soccer, men's basketball, and baseball. But above all else, and most importantly, she's very near and dear to my heart, my big sister, Janelle Abarca. Janelle, it's great to have you, and I'm super excited to have you on as my very first guest, and I think you're going to help me lay a beautiful foundation for where I want this to go. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So kind of a little bit of background for yourself, and I know we've talked about this, but the listeners as well. Where I want this to go is, and the purpose behind this is, there's a lot of resources out there, and I know you know working in a Division III institution, I've been through college and all that, but there's a lot of resources out there, but I want this to be another outlet for student athletes, the youth, next generation, anyone who is currently writing their story, building their own experiences. And that's why I wanted this to be a guest-based podcast, because not only do we have experiences like yours where you're working as an athletic trainer, but I also want to bring on, administrators, current collegiate athletes, former collegiate athletes, professors, teachers, counselors, sports psychologists, anyone that is around student athletes or is around, the youth, that, like I said, can give their experiences and can help someone, with their experiences writing their own story. So again, thank you, and let's start here. So you are currently a certified athletic trainer. Take me through two things. Take me through a day where it's game day, and take me through a day where it's an off day where you do your office work and preparation.
Okay. So normally on game days, I wake up, let's say if it's a Friday basketball game or Saturday basketball game, whatever it may be, kind of get up in the morning early, head over to team breakfast. Guys are eating, and I'm kind of in and out of the athletic training room with setting up coolers and getting ice and water and the AED and splint bag and athletic training table, and making sure that my kit is fully stocked with things I'm going to need on the sideline. Setting up the gym while the guys are doing their walkthrough. Then they'll do film. I'm still in the athletic training room getting things ready. And then, they do their walkthrough. They'll do a quick, shoot around, and then we wait for the team to get there. And again, I'm in and out of the athletic training room. The guys are coming in, getting last minute things, stretching, heating, doing whatever they need to do. And then, they'll go get changed. They'll have a chat with coach, and just in the locker room kind of get together and kind of talk about the game, whatever they'll do personnel. And then they'll come to me, they'll get taped. They can, we usually listen to Justin Bieber in the athletic training room. That's kind of my, Justin Bieber on game days is a really big thing. And, it's just like a very upbeat atmosphere. We're getting ready for game day. I'm a big, running through the hallways. I see a coach. I'm like, game day, fist bump. We're really excited for game days. So they'll come in, I'll tape them, they'll, roll out. I'll, use the hypervolt on them, kind of make sure that they're loose and ready. And then, the visiting team will come in. They're usually, they'll travel their athletic trainer. They'll come in our conference. We're very friendly with our athletic trainers. They know that they can come in, use anything they need. And then they'll kind of go out. We'll watch our teams warm up. And then, it's game time. So, I personally like to stand behind my bench. And, I'm a water girl. I'm, making sure that I'm checking for blood in between timeouts. I'm keeping an eye on the guys on the bench while keeping an eye on the game, making sure that whoever's out, is, doing okay, whoever's in is doing okay. And so in between halves, I'll go talk to the athletic trainer from the visiting team, make sure that they need anything, refill waters. I, run into the locker room right before the coaches go in during halftime, just kind of check it, make sure everyone's okay. Nobody needs a retape, nobody needs anything. And so I'm standing most of the game, which as a young athletic trainer, I think it's just kind of the excitement in me that I just want to be up and moving around, and I can't sit still, where other athletic trainers may sit at the end of the bench, may sit behind the bench and just kind of watch the game. And I feel like I just need to be moving, I need to be involved. And then game, hopefully we win, everyone's doing well, but after that it's just a cleanup, and I could be there for between 9 and 12 hours on a game day, because guys may come in after, can I get an ice bath? I know you don't want to stay late, Janelle, but can I get an ice bath? Or can I do recovery because I'm going home tomorrow or whatever, so they won't be on campus. So sometimes they'll do recovery, sometimes they won't. So it could be 9, 12-hour day, but that's kind of what game days look like.
A couple things on that. I visited you and walked into your athletic training room, and of course Justin Bieber was on. So that was an observation. And I watch the streams. Every sporting event that you're a part of, I try to catch a stream at least at certain parts of the game. And you're right. You're pacing, you're walking around, you're never standing still. So I've definitely seen that. But yeah, take me through an off day.
So I'll usually get into the office between 9 and 10 every day, and usually Sunday evenings, actually, we'll start there. Sunday evenings, I kind of open up my schedule on our platform where athletes can sign up for rehab. So, say Monday morning, I go in between 9 and 10, and I have rehab slots open at every half hour that athletes can sign up for rehab. So between like 9:30 and say 1:30, I've got slots open at the half hour for athletes to come in to get treatment, whether it be because they had an injury, it's preventative care. I have a lot of kids that are like, my knees have been bothering me, I want to come in before anything happens and do some rehab, do some strengthening. It could also be, we have a lot of still these COVID return to play protocols where athletes need to come in and follow this return to play protocol before they can be released to practice. So sometimes, they'll make appointments to come in and do those, or concussion return to play protocols. And that's kind of my 9 to 1:30. I'm working with athletes in between that. I'm kind of filling out paperwork, what did we do today? What exercises did we do? Where are they in their protocol? Do we need to regress or can we progress in the protocol? And then, things, slow down after 1:30 because I stopped taking appointments. Athletes are coming in and out, fill their water bottles. I always, stress, stay hydrated. They're coming in to say hi. I share an office space with 2 other athletic trainers, and we have kind of a sitting area where athletes will come in and they'll sit down and they're like, oh, Janelle, I got really hard Spanish test, this afternoon, and they'll come in and chat, and, it's really nice to know that they have this relationship with me where they can come in and just kind of tell me about their day. It's not strictly sports related or strictly injury related. And then I have one of our master's students come in, and they are working on their clinicals for athletic training. So they come in and, they'll help me get waters ready and take things out to wherever we're having practice. We're having soccer practice, we'll go take water out to the soccer field, come back in, tape people up if they need it, and then just kind of wait for practice, and then we'll go out to practice and just kind of sit and make sure that everyone's doing okay. But practice days, we're just kind of sitting and watching. We're not really doing too much, so it's pretty relaxed. Get anyone ice that they need after practice, and then I get to go home. Sometimes I get to go home, if there's a 3:30 practice, I'm home by 7 o'clock. If I have a 7:30 practice, I'm not home till 10. So, but I have the flexibility to kind of alter my schedule if I know I have a 7:30 soccer practice that, my rehabs, maybe I'll push back. Like I won't start rehabs until noon, but I'll push them from noon to 4:30 so that I have, I'm not there all day and I have a little bit of time to myself in the mornings, do rehabs, go to practice, get home for the next day.
Clearly a lot of time spent with the team, and I've followed you and teams that you've been a part of, and you very much are a part of the team. So how important is it for you to stay prepared, stay on top of everything you need to stay on top of, just like these student athletes? They have to they have to train, diet, practice, academics. You're a part of the team, but you have to stay prepared in your own way. How important is it for you? Because you spend so much time around them. You're at games, you're at practices, you're there for recovery. You're there when they're not there. So how important is that for you to take care of what you need to take care of so you can be there for them?
It's funny, I saw an Instagram post a while ago that was like, you got to make sure that you're prepared so that you're there for your athletes. And that really struck me because, I'll get home, if I do have a 7:30 p.m. Soccer practice, get home at 10:30, and then, I'm still it's hard to wind down, that quickly, so, I don't get to bed till 12, but the next day I may have a 3:30, soccer practice, so I want to open my rehab schedule a little bit earlier, so the turnaround time is a little bit quicker. So I really try to make time for myself to unwind and relax as much as I can, get enough rest, get good meals in me. But sometimes it's difficult where, a lot of the times it's packing lots of little snacks. So throughout the day I can, be fueled and ready. But I think it's also just, for me, it's making sure that I get to know my athletes in a way that, I know, this person usually comes in on Mondays and they check in with me, and, kind of remembering they had, that Spanish test, I want to check in, how did that Spanish test go? Let them know that I care about more than just, is that sprained ankle healing or not? And then just for me, fitting my schedule, to make time for them, but also it's all right, if I have an early practice, I can go work out afterwards, or if I have a later practice and I'm coming in later, I can go work out and come into work later, or I know that I have to go to the grocery store, but, I don't want to go late, I can go in the morning. So it's just kind of shifting my schedule around, what's going to work for them. Because a lot of the times too, I may want to start a little bit later and say do rehabs at noon, but I also have to be conscious of the fact that they are student athletes, they go to school, so I have to be aware of their academic schedules and know, labs on Thursdays, athletes can't come in from a certain time because they've got a big block, so I have to also be, conscious of that. And so it's a lot of kind of almost like Tetris with my schedule and fitting things in different places.
There has to be, I would think, a lot of trust between the athletes and yourself to the athletes. There's got to be mutual trust there, and strong on both sides, I'd imagine. For one, physical health. I mean, you are in taking care of their bodies, but like these kind of personal relationships, they tell you about their exams, they might tell you about something, in their personal life, whatever, while being taped up, this and that. And how important is that trust factor, whether it's with something personal, whether it's with athletics, where have you seen that be, really important in your profession? And what would you tell, two-pronged question, what would you tell someone, maybe a student athlete who isn't as trusting of their athletic trainer, maybe doesn't know that, building that relationship is as important as it is?
I think just kind of building that rapport with an athlete right off the bat is super important. I mean, I'm newly certified, so I just started at the institution I'm at last year. And, obviously the juniors, sophomores, juniors, seniors had a previous athletic trainer before I started. So, I was a little bit nervous, and I knew their athletic trainer before. So, I can't compare to your old athletic trainer, but, here I am. I'm here for you, kind of letting them know that they can come to me. I'm going to do my best to, give them the best care that I can. and, just kind of taking those little tidbits of their life and remembering things, and that's kind of how you build up that trust. Like, they'll start to tell you things if you remember, oh yeah, like I remembered, you were telling me about this show, like very little things that, they're like, oh, she pays attention, she remembers. And I think that that's very helpful. It's weird, on Friday I had a student athlete who transferred, who was coming to visit, and she came in and she spoke to me and she was like, just wanted to come say hi. She goes, she's like, I don't think you realize the impact you made in my life. And she was, coming back, and she was a freshman last year, so, she didn't know anyone before me at the institution. So I think it was very, it felt good for me to know that I had made a difference in her life, and she came back and she thanked me, and she's like, I'm still figuring out my life, but I knew I had to see you, and like, thank you for so I don't even really realize the impact that I make in lives. But I would just say, for an athlete, even if you had a previous athletic trainer, just kind of slowly but surely put your trust into whoever is working with you, because we're there to provide care, whether it's physical, mental, emotional support. Like, that's, and I hate to say that's my job, because I don't want athletes to be like, well, you only care because you have to, but it goes beyond that, and I do care about my athletes, and, I have very personal relationships with all of them, and so it's being at the Division III level, I think it's just a little bit closer, just because it's a smaller institution, so I can really build up that trust and that relationship where they can come in and tell me about their relationships. One of my athletes just got engaged, and he was telling me about that, and so it's like nice to have those relationships and them to be able to tell me just about everything that's going on in their lives.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so great to hear. And because, like I said, you really are a part of the team. I mean, you spend almost as much as time with your athletes as they do with one another, as they do with the coach, other support staff. So, people talk and about more than sports. So, those conversations, probably mean just a ton to them. On that topic of trust, where the parents come in, and that has to be a tough spot for parents to be in, to have their their sons, their daughters, putting that their bodies and healthcare in the hands of someone else. So, and I know you have some good relationships with parents, and parents have given you Christmas gifts and other things along the way. So I think that's awesome. And how important is that relationship with parents as well? And where do you see that just kind of in comparison with trust of an athlete? Because I think both are super important.
So at the collegiate level, it's just a little bit different, because you don't have to, most of our athletes are over 18, so there really isn't a lot of communication with parents about, injuries and stuff. Like, there's no, I have to tell a parent anything. So a lot of the interactions that I have with parents are usually at games, or if I see them, when they're visiting, athletes may bring their parents into the athletic training room and like introduce them, which is really nice. But I've had a couple athletes where, they've had doctor's visits where I sometimes like to go, and, we have a team doctor, he's really great, and so I like to go with the athlete too, to just kind of see, did I make sure I got the diagnosis right, and are we on the same page as far as like a treatment plan? So parents might be at the appointments as well, so I get to know them in that way. But I think letting them know, like, that I'm doing everything that I can to help, their athlete, whether it's going to appointments with them and making sure that the doctor and I are on the same page, or making sure that the athlete knows that I'm here for any, like, do I have to refer you out to someone else for other things? Like, I'm going to, do my research, I'm going to do what I can, and I let parents know, to what I can tell them. So athletes, they'll obviously tell their parents things, and then they'll come tell me, and it's like, well, I can't give you too much information, but, based on what they've told their parents, I can kind of share how I'm doing things, what I'm doing, I did have an athlete who had 2 concussions, pretty close together, and so the parents were pretty involved, in certain aspects. But I think that just letting them know that I'm doing what I can, to protect their child and give them the best quality of care while they're at school and they're at home. I think that's just important for parents to know that, again, that's my job, and it's not, I have to, but, it comes with the territory.
Why athletic training?
Why not?
Well,
Someone's gotta do it.
someone has to do it, but you started somewhere, so.
No, so sports were a big part of our lives growing up. I actually didn't play a sport, I danced, and not until a little bit later was dance, officially considered a sport. But I was very active, when I was younger, and you were very active in sports, and we're a big sports family. So, I kind of knew I wanted to do something related to sports, but then, science and, since grade school was just like, I was good at science, and so then when I realized that you can kind of combine it and the exercise science, getting my undergrad in exercise science, I was like, okay, like now, what else can I do with this? And there's just so many outlets with exercise science. You can do physical therapy, you can do athletic training, you can do like personal training, you can do just a lot of different things. You can coach. I mean, there's different outlets that you can go, and I just kind of liked more of the working with athletes aspect, where, physical therapists can also work with athletes as well, but there was just something, athletic training was just kind of one of the options, and I looked into it and I really liked what I saw, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And at first it was, do I want to do physical therapy? I worked at a physical therapy company right out of undergrad and kind of saw what that was like, but also was able to shadow athletic trainers. And I was like, I think athletic training is what I want to do. And to be able to be kind of this first responder and, at sporting events and be, someone who wears many hats, whether it's, diagnosing and treating an injury, or being kind of someone that knows about nutrition and mental health and, several different things, working with concussions. Like, I was able to take a lot of what I know and just kind of compact it into one profession.
I've seen you, I shouldn't say I've seen you. I went to a basketball game recently that you covered, and someone went down on the court, and as that happened, I was looking down at the program, so go to watch the game, but I also go to there, I'm there to support my sister, and I'm looking down at the program, just kind of getting some more background on the players, and, I do see you walking back to the bench from the court, and, I missed my sister's time to shine. When something like that happens, athlete goes down, you see a collision, you see knees collide, see an ankle being rolled, and there's a break in the action, whether it's, whatever sport it is. Where does your mind go? Is it hard to keep that professional mentality at times because you are so close, because you are a part of the team? But at the same time, how focused do you have to be in those moments? Because it's got to be like it's time to work,
I'd like to preface this by saying that we never want a time to shine. Never want to have to, run onto the court, run across the field for anybody. But, for example, one of my women's soccer players, she got hurt, and, it's like, okay, like, yeah, this is my time to shine, but, it's like you go through kind of your mental checklist of what do I have to do in this situation? Okay, this is what I saw. You run onto the field, speak with the athlete. This is what they're telling me. It's just everything is processing so quickly, and you have to figure out what's my next step so quickly. You don't really have time to be emotional or, think about, oh my God, you focus on the athlete and the injury. What can I do for them in this moment? Whether to take them off the field, is it a quick, can I just look at this on the field? Are they okay? Can they get back up? Do I have to take them off? If I do have to take them off the field, it's a quick, what do I need to do? What do you need from me? And she actually ended up breaking her foot, which in that moment, it's hard to tell that athlete, you can't go back in, especially because it was at the beginning of the season. This athlete, she was so ready to play, and it's hard to be like, hey, this is one of your first games, but you know that it's the end of their season because of this injury. And so you have to kind of, in a way, tell them like, okay, you can't go in this game. Communicate that to the coach, which is also a really big thing for us, is having to be that liaison between athlete and coach and telling them, hey, your athlete can't go back in. Figure out a different, plan. And this is all happening, during, our medical timeout or whatever it may be. So it's just kind of a quick, this is what I need to do. We'll be emotional later. We'll talk about it later. We'll figure things out. And, there have been other injuries, a little bit more traumatic, where you're like scared, nervous. What do I have to do? Luckily, there hasn't been anything too traumatic yet. Hopefully, never get there. But, you just have to do what you're supposed to do and then kind of process everything later.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think any athletic trainer wants their time to shine. Where's that relationship or communication between yourself and the coach? Because oftentimes you are probably the middleman or the middle woman between a coach and an athlete, and you have to do what's best for the athlete at all times, no matter if it's might be detrimental to the team or what might seem detrimental to the team, but might work out in the long run, because they might be on the court, on the field, in the swimming pool longer, because you're doing your job, what you're supposed to do. So talk about that, your communication, and kind of being that middle person between coach and athlete.
So I actually have an injury report that I update every day for my coaches. Each individual sport, each coach is able to see the injury report for that sport. And so, after my rehabs, I update that injury report and I let them know, like, hey, this person or these people, are good to practice. This person has some restrictions, like, they may be on a time restriction because of a protocol, or they may have to do non-contact, drills or whatever. And then we have the, cannot participate for this reason. And it's funny because I am, the middle person. I get a lot from the coaches. Well, what if we, can they practice this day and maybe take this day off? I really want them to get reps in, here. And it's like, you have to, kind of put your foot down and be like, if you want them to play on Friday, like, I need, to give them X amount of days of rest or recover or whatever it may be. But then you have the other side from the athlete where it's like, do I have to practice? Like, can you just say I'm injured? And it doesn't work like that, So, you're here to play. You want to play, and so it's a lot of that where coaches may be trying to pressure me to get an athlete back, especially if they're one of they're important to the team, and they might want to get them back quicker, see what they can do to get them back onto the field or back onto the court as fast as possible. And sometimes it's hard for me to say no because, I need to make sure I do what's best for them. Like, it's hard explaining to the athlete too, like, I know you don't want me to hold you out, but if you have a concussion and I put you out too early, there are things like second impact syndrome where, that can damage their brain further if they get hit again. Or, I want them to understand that you're playing at this level for the most part. For most athletes, you're only playing at this level for 4 or 5 years. And I'm thinking of not just these 4 or 5 years, but I'm thinking long term. I don't want, something to happen to you where later on in life it's going to affect you. Like, I want to kind of get you better now so that it also doesn't affect you later on in life. Like, people with knee injuries that, no, I can go out and play, like, I'll just, pop 5 ibuprofen, I'll be fine. And it's like, okay, but do you want to be able to run around with your kids in 10, 15 years, So I kind of have to put that perspective into, their minds and also into the coaches' minds. Like, hey, I understand, like, there's a game, but if it's not, sometimes it also depends. If it's not a super important game, like, I'm not going to rush an athlete back. I'm going to make sure that they're fully, ready to go for conference play or for whatever it may be. Sometimes we may do a little bit extra if, there is, it's end of the season almost, we'll try and do something to kind of speed up recovery. But for the most part, I do what I have to do in that moment and communicate that to both coaches and athletes.
When you said, you're thinking long-term, 10, 15 years, and, running around with their children, I know personally, friends, through past experiences that some student athletes might have children already, while they're working with you. So I think that's a good segue into, there's a lot that these student athletes handle, their academics, family, relationships, and athletics, of course. How, where are you kind of on that, scale of well-being? And, you touched on some, mental health and stuff like that. Where are you? Because you're deeply entrenched in the athletics, being their athletic trainer, but, when you're having these, taping them up or kind of checking up on them, or if they stop in your office, between the day walking to class, do you tell them, hey, relax, maybe take a day off, or, where are you kind of on that, and how much do you care about not only their physical health, but their, mental health, just well-being in general?
I think that it's, like I said, important from the beginning to kind of get to know these athletes when we do their pre-participation exams before, or like their physical screenings before the start of the season, to make sure that, we check everything, they kind of give them a physical. We also kind of touch on mental health. We give them a questionnaire, kind of see where they're at. And there are, certain questions that, if they say that, sometimes, they feel sad or, whatever, like, I'm reaching out to all of my athletes, but, I pay attention to, athletes who may say, like, I get really overwhelmed with my schedule, or I get really overwhelmed when we have late practice. So I try and touch base with them, as much as I can. I'm sending texts, whether it be individual texts or in, the group messages, and just letting them know, like, whatever I can do to support you, let me know. Like, it's not just, I'm not a counselor, but I know I'm actually, there's a program that's like mental health first aid. So I'm trained in that, where I'm able to kind of identify some signs that, someone's struggling with stuff, whether it be just like, they're anxious about their classes, to, noticing substance abuse things, or even just like things that, where athletes might harm themselves. So I'm trained to like kind of see those things. And because I don't have, again, I'm not a counselor, I'm able to refer them out to a specific resource. I let my athletes know, like, if there's anything that I can do, you need to let me know, because I have the resources for them. I just need to have them let me know how I can get them there. But I mean, I do make sure that they know that I care. It's just because soccer season has ended, I don't completely lose communication with my soccer athletes until the next soccer season. I'm constantly checking up on them, making sure that they're okay. And I do have 2 men's teams, and I think that I stress a lot with my men's teams, like, if you need anything, please reach out, because, there's a stigma behind mental health and men that, just kind of toughen up, or, don't show emotion, whatever it may be. But it's okay for athletes to, be sad or be homesick or, be going through relationship problems, whatever it may be, that, let them know that they have someone to talk to. If they don't want to go to their coaches, they don't really want to talk to their teammates, like, come in, have a conversation with me. If you need further help, I'm going to help get you there.
Yeah, that's so important, because at the core of all of it, these student athletes are human beings, and whether these athletics are eventually a profession for these athletes, or an escape, or maybe it's just paying for their school, right? Because let's be honest, some athletes don't want to play professionally. Some athletes just are talented and have gotten a lot of money to do that in college. So, but at the core, they are human beings, and those struggles, that that adversity doesn't leave. They might have that escape for a few hours at practice, at a game, but once they leave, they might still have piles of homework. They might still be going through a breakup or something at home. So, what are some common misconceptions about athletic training that you might have maybe before school, that you might have thought going in and realized, like, okay, this isn't that way, or this is that way, or things that you hear, or not everyone knows everything about your profession, so you might talk to someone you haven't talked to, or even a family member, and they might ask a question here or there that actually might have nothing to do with what you do, or everything to do with what you do, and maybe no one asks. So what are some misconceptions with your profession?
So when I was, finishing up my undergrad, trying to figure out what to do, I had to look into, what's the difference between an athletic trainer and just, you see the word trainer and people just kind of lump anything that has trainer, whether it be personal trainer, athletic trainer, fitness trainer, whatever it may be, together. And even now at, the athletic training community, we struggle to kind of advocate for the profession and say, a personal trainer works in a gym and they help you reach your fitness goals, and they're helping you, whether it's lose weight, gain muscle, kind of just being that motivation for you. And a lot of people are just, I tell them, like, I'm an athletic trainer. They're like, oh, can you help me work out? Like, can you help me, lose weight? And it's like, well, I don't, I'm not a personal trainer, I'm an athletic trainer. And, having to explain to them that we do so much more than just, I think, on Monday Night Football, you might see the athletic trainer running around with the Gatorade bottles, or, people joke that we're, glorified water boy, water girl. I got my master's to fill water bottles, which that's, part of the job, but, it's just so much more than that. It's, preventative treatment, making sure that athletes are in shape. It's diagnosing and treating an injury. It's rehabbing. It's being able to treat a concussion. It's being a first responder. It's being someone who is familiar with skin diseases and, illnesses, and being able to kind of recognize different things. And it's the broken bones, it's the mental health. Like, there's so many things wrapped into it that sometimes it's, you have to have this little, like, elevator speech to give to people, like, this is what I do, and kind of try to compact everything, but you feel like you can't get it all out because, 10 seconds in, people are like, okay, so you just work with athletes. Like, that's, but it's, there's so much that goes into it. And, it's like, I am on the sports medicine staff, I am a medical professional. Like, that's something that we are also trying to get across. Like, we have national provider identification numbers. Like, we are medical professionals. You see that we learn how to spine board in certain situations. We are CPR, AED certified for the first responder. Like, if someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest, like, we know what to do. It's not just taping ankles, it's literally saving lives sometimes.
Yeah, that's powerful. All those responsibilities wrapped into one, and you're right, 10, 15 seconds, it's probably way too much for even me. That would go over my head. There has to be a common appreciation between athletic trainers, ones that you currently work with, have worked with, will work with, and I guess that's just maybe any profession. You see someone, maybe it's banking, and you see another banker. Maybe you have this kind of connection that you don't even need to establish. It's already there. But I know you've worked with others in the past, and you keep in contact, and you, just like I root for your teams that you cover. I'm sure you root for their teams that they cover. So where's that general appreciation, and how cool is that?
Well, I mean, athletic training is everywhere now, and it's growing. Years ago, you didn't see athletic trainers in middle schools. You didn't see them working in factories, but athletic trainers are quite literally everywhere now. You've got athletic trainers in the school system, starting in, middle school, where wherever sports are being played, middle schools, high schools, at the collegiate level, at the professional level. A lot of companies hire athletic trainers, to make sure that their employees are, well taken care of. And you also see them in doctors' offices. A lot of doctors hire athletic trainers to help, especially orthopedic doctors, to help with kind of those follow-up visits. The athletic trainer knows, they've worked with the broken bones. They can help with, I know one of my friends, she works at a physician's office, and she helps with the casting. Someone breaks their arm, she's in there, she's helping cast the athlete. Or they're in the surgeries watching. I did a really cool clinical rotation where I got to watch a couple surgeries, and it's really cool to kind of take, you see, the bones, ligaments in a textbook, but you get to see them firsthand in the surgical room. And it is really cool to kind of, see where the profession will take you. I've had a friend who worked for a professional football team, and just like, I don't, follow professional football, but, if his team was playing, you try to look on TV and see, can I see him in the background, So it is really cool to see that. And the National Athletic Trainers Association has a convention every summer where athletic trainers get together, and you just see athletic trainers from everywhere coming together and, being able to share stories. You have athletic trainers that, go through really traumatic experiences, like we saw with the NFL. But everyone has different stories to tell, what they've seen, and just being able to swap stories and swap really cool ideas. An athletic trainer may be like, so, this athlete had shin splints, this is what I did. And I would never think oh, that might be a really cool treatment to use on one of my athletes. So it's really nice to kind of share stories and see, how to incorporate other things into my practice. And athletic trainers are also always just doing research. That's another big thing. The research is just always flowing. So you're always learning. We're required to do continuing education. So we're just always learning as well, what's phased out, what's phased in, what cool new modalities. The, massage gun is a huge thing. How can we use that? And so it's really cool to just hear from, everywhere.
Yeah, just like with any medicine, I know if I were to ask you what I do if I had a cold, you'd tell me something different than what Mom would tell me, and I would do something different than what you or Mom would tell me. So I think that's the cool part, is that there are different methods and different routes, avenues you can go down, all for the common purpose of just making sure this student athlete's going to be okay, or this athlete in general is going to be okay, professional, amateur, whichever. One thing I really want to do, and I maybe touched on it a little earlier, but I want to tie all this together, from episode 1 here to episode, who knows where this will go, how many episodes, 5, 10, 500. I want to tie them all together, because the genesis of this, idea was to help that, those upcoming athletes, or to help just the upcoming individual who might listen to this or might watch this and, might not know much about athletic training, might not know much about, other professions or other sports, bring other, athletes on that play sports that, are non-revenue sports or professions that maybe someone doesn't have a complete understanding of. And, every, individual, and just like we know, your profession is so, it can be so complex at times. You carry so many responsibilities. At the core of it, the bottom line is, myself, yourself, your colleagues want to help someone, both in your profession, but at the the student athlete, the youth, next generation, whichever, whoever turns this on, can take little bits and pieces of what you said, and apply it to their lives, whether it's in athletics or not. So, what advice would you give to the next person that is going to be on this episode? Not knowing, I've talked to you about people that I'm planning on having on and will have on, but what advice would you give to the next person? It can be professional, it can be personal, it can be anything. What one or two lines would you give to the person that will be sitting in your chair next?
I think I would say just be completely candid. I think, in the generation of podcasts and social media, I think people, put out what they think people want to hear versus, what you have to say. So I think just, be candid, speak whatever's on your mind, not necessarily what you think people want to hear, but, let your voice be heard and say what you want to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you came home this weekend. We're recording this at the end of February, so might be a few weeks down the line once this is finalized and published. But thank you for not spontaneous. This wasn't a surprise, but you also, I don't think we're planning on coming home for maybe a while, but you did this weekend, so thank you. I was glad to have you and appreciate you, everything you do for me. I know I talk way more than I talk way more than you do when I call you, and I always kind of apologize for sorry, I'm talking about myself too much. Want to hear more about you and what you do and how you are. So I think this was great. I just tried to sit back and listen. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Good luck.